All righty. Okay.
Daisy has things to say about the food chain too.
Oh yeah, dude. Glenn Greenwald, he actually did this show on factory farms and about how this person came out as a whistleblower. It was actually really. I'm so glad that he actually talked
Nice.
about this because it's to me obviously something. Being a vegan, I am. Uh, that's one of the reasons why I'm vegan is for animal rights. But anyways, okay. So the first thing that I wanted to bring up was the fact that so you remember how last week I was talking to you guys about HR 7010, the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act of 2020,
Right.
which was talking about extending the time for you to hire your employees back and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
and being able to forgive certain things that you weren't able to forgive before. So that actually passed. So and it was signed into law by Trump on the 5th of June. So just wanted to give you guys
So we did think this would be somewhat helpful for small businesses, et cetera, right? They'll be able to have a little more leeway in, being able to retain staff, et cetera.
I do think that this is good for these small businesses if they're for the most part, but I think
Yeah.
we have to also look at the broader aspect of how you have companies like Boeing who have been bailed out and now they're going to go and lay off a bunch of their employees. I think
Okay.
that is something that it's something that's a part of this as well. Remember, because you were supposed to be able to if you're not able to hire back all of your employees, your loan can still be forgiven. And the fact that you have that extension of time to be able to hire back your employees, again, it can be good, but it can also be bad depending upon who takes advantage of these things.
Right. Yep. And if unemployment isn't extended to match that period, then yeah, we got to have some people that are hurting.
And ultimately, what it comes down to is that the people are not being bailed out. We keep being the first call to action for our Congress has been to bail out all of these big corporations, and it's just like fuck the little person. All of these
Mm.
things have been passed without question, and then when it comes to getting more money to the people, it seems like an impossible task.
Right.
So that's why I think that okay, this is good, but at the same time, how about you focus a little bit on being able to make sure that people have enough money to know where their next meal is coming from, or to know that they're not going to get evicted from their home because they were able to not pay their mortgage or their rent for 3 months, but now they're going to have to be forced to pay 3 months or 4 months worth of rent.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that really just drives me nuts. Anyways,
Mm.
rant over. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was HR 7114, which is to extend and clarify relief to student loan borrowers and for the other purposes. So this was introduced by Representative Stivers this week on the 4th, and it's just been introduced in the committees right now. And there isn't any sort of text that is assigned to it. But he had also come up with back in 2017, he had introduced with the same person, I think it's Sewell, Representative Sewell, the Student Loan Debt Relief Act, which it wasn't that great because, as you can read here, it says this bill amends the Internal Revenue Code with respect to the tax treatment of student loan payments to extend the tax exclusion from employer-provided educational assistance programs to include an employer's payment of any qualified education loan incurred by an employee, or increase the maximum amount that may be excluded from the gross income of an employee under employer-based education assistance programs, and increase the maximum deduction and the income limitation for the deduction for interest on education loans.
Well, wait a second. You don't get. I mean, first of all, if you don't itemize your deductions, how's this going to help you?
Right. And so I guess that's why it increase the maximum deduction, or I think it was
Yeah, but I mean, if you're
here. So the increase the maximum amount that may be excluded. I don't know. It's like I said, like it wasn't the greatest thing.
right.
Obviously, I think it's Ilhan Omar. She introduced a bill to be able to cancel student loan debt. I don't really know which one of these things would actually be feasible, but I found it pretty funny the fact that so he introduced this, and it's just been introduced in the committees, and back what this resolution that he introduced in 2017 pretty much was the same thing. He introduced it in committees and it didn't fucking go anywhere. So I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, and then the last thing is this thing from Justin Amash, which I thought would somehow come up in the conversation, but I'm surprised it didn't. So Justin Amash and Ilhan Omar actually introduced this, which was to end the immunity for policing.
Qualified immunity is the term.
Yeah, qualified immunity. Yeah, so so as you can see here, to amend the revised statutes to remove the defense of qualified immunity in the case of any action under Section 1979 and for other purposes. So I thought this was really great, and he actually put out a letter on Twitter, and this is a letter that he put out to his fellow senators, because he's representative. Yeah, the House of Representative. So I don't know if you want me to like read this because can you see it? It's pretty small.
Can you summarize it maybe
Yeah, summarize would be great.
25 words or less?
Well,
30 words, okay, whatever.
Okay, so essentially it could be like, I guess, summed up in here. As part of the Civil Rights Act of 1871, Congress allowed individuals to sue state and local officials, including police officers, who violate their rights. Starting in 1967, the Supreme Court began gutting the law by inventing the doctrine of qualified immunity. Under qualified immunity, police are immune from liability unless the person whose rights they violated can show that there is a previous case in the same jurisdiction involving the exact same facts in which a court deemed the actions to be a constitutional violation. And so essentially it's that you can't really prosecute these people, and that you wouldn't be able to really win in a civil suit. Again, this seems to be the issue, right? Always that these people, they act with impunity.
I mean, I think the doctrine of qualified immunity, I mean, to be devil's advocate here, I think the idea was that in the heat of the moment, a police officer doesn't always know exactly what the law is. So they may overstep the bounds of the law occasionally, and that qualified immunity is meant to protect them as long as it's not too egregious. Obviously, the way it's written or the way it's interpreted by the Supreme Court, it goes way too far. But I don't think the doctrine of qualified immunity per se is necessarily evil or bad, but the way it's written, it obviously goes way too far, and it's used as a shield for any kind of accountability.
Right. Right.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so far it actually is pretty popular because it has 17 co-sponsors, as you can see here, and Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and AOC signed on to it. Tulsi has not, which I'm pretty interested to see why, because I'm pretty sure they're friends. And I feel like this would be something that she would really be on board with, because she is into police accountability. But I also thought it was interesting that Justin Amash actually, he is a candidate. He's a libertarian candidate for president. So I don't think that is a coincidence, the fact that he is putting this out, because this can be seen as an actual response to what is going on, like somebody actually taking action, while obviously Trump and Biden are sitting ducks, essentially. But I thought this was really good, this interview that happened with the Washington Examiner. where he talks about like what he would focus on for if he were president. And he does what I really liked was that he, first of all, he called out Congress. He said that he said here, as president, I would be able to tell Congress to get their act together or I won't sign this bill, the bills. The congressman continued, if Congress refuses to run an appropriate legislation process, I'm not signing the bill. So I did like the fact that he talked about that. And obviously, because he's a libertarian, he talks about individualism, which is something that I think is really important. And he also talks about the foreign policy aspect of things, where with the civil liberties thing, he was talking about civil asset forfeiture, which would be something really important for him. I mean, like talking about stuff that I think that people really care about. If they are open to actually listening to other candidates, which
and that's interesting because that's a kind of populism that's different from Trump's populism, you know. So Trump gave lip service to getting out of wars and everything, but he never really, there was nothing behind it. Whereas this seems like it's more substantial, you know, substantive or whatever the word is. Not just about the wars, but about the infringement of individual rights, you know, with civil forfeiture and these doctrines, you know, that have been abused.
Here he talks about it. So for Amash, one key area in which Congress needs to start doing its job again is foreign policy. And I really like that. I like that he is calling out his fellow Congress people because it's true. They've abdicated their responsibility of being the third arm of the holding the president accountable, you know.
But that happened for a reason, you know, that Congress abdicated that responsibility, and I don't think they're going to get it back anytime soon. I really don't. I don't see that, because the reality of the world now, you know, where you have to have, you know, lightning response times and everything. You can't have, you know, like they'll have something like the Gulf of Tonkin incident, right? So I mean, like they'll have to react to these things, whether they're actual or you know, not real white flag types of things. They'll have to react to it in real time. They can't wait for Congress to approve. You know, so like presidents now, they conduct war by not declaring war. You know, you have. I mean, when was the last time we have police action in Korea? Or we never had a war in Vietnam, right? So I mean, they'll get around that. That's. So I mean, it sounds great that they're going to do that, but like to actually put that into practice, I'd like to see how that's going to be done.
Oh yeah, I mean it's purely rhetoric mostly probably, but I mean I still think that it's important to show different just the fact that he's actually going out there and speaking.
Right.
You know,
well, that I mean that's
important.
Right.
So it says he takes issue with the way lawmakers have largely abdicated their constitutional war powers, leaving presidents able to launch military interventions at will. If there are wars that I believe are not authorized, I can tell Congress it has 90 days to provide me with an appropriate authorization, or I will begin to return troops to the United States. I thought that was really powerful for him to say something like that. I think that's an important policy proposal and leverage point that I will have as president. So he using his bully pulpit to the betterment of the country, in my view. I don't know. I thought that was pretty important to highlight.
But with the current Congress, I mean, they would just rubber stamp whatever the president does anyways. I mean, pretty much.
But if we're thinking about it in the paradigm of they're only going to do it if they're Democrat or Republican, he is a libertarian. So he's more toward the right. So the Republicans, and especially if it's a Republican-led Senate, well then.
Well, this is again where the left and the right, you know, the not the duopoly, but the outside, you know, they're the populists, whether it's Bernie Sanders or whether it's Justin Amash or whatever on the right, or Trump even, you know, or whatever. You have these different, or Tulsi to some extent. I mean, they are in some degree, they are more or less, they are populists, and so they are calling for these things, and that's where you can build bridges too between the left and the right on some of these issues, right?
Sorry, Jimmy, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, a couple things. I'm afraid I hate to burst
Yeah,
what
we should.
little hope. I hate to burst what little hope we have, but I'm reading that Justin Amash actually
Oh.
he canceled yeah that not that long ago. And the other thing related to that that bill you were talking about regarding police Joe Biden's reaction to the Rodney King beating in 1991 was to author a bill about a policeman's Bill of Rights, protecting them from being. Yeah, that was his reaction to Rodney King, was to worry about the police being prosecuted in such instances. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't get out of committee. But literally, he called it like it was like the police Bill of Rights.
Well, you know, the police unions, or the police groups, are now going against Biden because Biden was always considered a friend, a so-called friend of the police, and now he's radically anti-police. And if you think, I mean, Biden is your radical threat, I mean, come on, I mean, people are obviously gone way to the right.
You'd think they would catch that it's just a wink and a nod, right? I've got to say these things now. Right. You think the police would know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that guy Kroll from the Minneapolis Police Union came out and said, I believe it was him, criticized Biden and said, like, he's no friend of the police anymore or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Cool.
This is good. Good. This was good.
All right, guys. That was great.
Yes.
Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Okay. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.